Because then I was getting asked questions, you see. It was like, well, if you're that good and people are saying you're that good, how come you're not playing? And he just said, he singled me out a little bit and just said, how long am I going to have to wait for you? I just went in a couple of days after the season and he just said, well, you'll be starting next season, you'll share that position. And then he left.
Stephen is the best player I've seen in a long time. He's an outstanding talent. How did it feel at the time when you were just on the edges of making this breakthrough?
You heard Taylor's left, and when he said it, I thought he meant Ian Taylor because he obviously got moving on. I just got it mixed up, and then when he said it was the manager, I just thought, no, you can't be right. Just made a mess of my ankle and I just couldn't seem to get right. And then I come back from it and it was still giving me some pain, went for the scan and it hadn't healed right, it was still broke in a couple of places. But do you know what, Matt? I think I was done, mate. I think I was physically done, and I just thought I don't need to be playing on my doorstep, getting hammered every week. Look, I loved every minute. I loved every minute of the club. It was just great. As a time, enjoyed it immensely, and I wouldn't change anything.
You are listening to Claret Blue, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you by Birmingham Live. Right, we're joined by Stephen Cooke for the latest episode of Claret Blue podcast. First of all, welcome, Stephen. How are you coping with lockdown?
Struggling a bit, mate, I suppose, like everybody else. Got two young boys running around the house, so it's quite hard to keep them occupied and entertained at the minute. So
what we're going to do, we're going to go on a bit of a wander down memory lane. You must be knocking on kind of 15, 20 years since you're at Villa. So for those who vaguely remember the name, or younger viewers and listeners who are not sure of who Stephen Cooke is, have I got this right, Steve? Is it fair to say kind of, I don't know, back around the turn of the millennium? Cocky, that makes us sound old, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Back around 2000, kind of. I don't know. Is it harsh? Am I piling too much? Am I overhyping it to say that you were kind of, hailed as one of the next wonder boys, one of the next kind of talents off the Bodymore production line? Probably
from outside, people inside the club, maybe. Not myself, certainly not. Yeah, there was a bit of a reputation there as I got older. Yeah. I was coming through.
You're a Walsall lad, aren't you? What were your first memories of you having a ball at your feet? Well, when did you kind of fall in love with football?
I think my first ever, I think it was like the first World Cup. I would have been about 1990 World Cup. I remember watching that. That would have been my first recollection of an actual game. But I think I was playing, my dad said, from the age of like 4, 3, with a ball always, just kicking it about and things like that.
When did you realise as a young player that you actually got some kind of talent in your boots?
I went to Walsall at the age of about 9 or 10, I think, and I trained with a year above, a year and a half there. And my actual age group, they didn't actually know I was already at Walsall Football Club, and they kept approaching my dad, and my dad was saying, well, he's there. And he said, he's not the right age group. You don't really think about being a professional. You always want to be a professional, obviously, but you don't know how good you have to be, I suppose. You're just playing and you're watching the people on the players on the TV, and it's just a dream at that time, and it's not like a reality, and you don't really, probably when I got a bit older, and you see the players close up when you actually get into the club, because we didn't see the players at Walsall. It was just training on once a week, and that was it.
So tell us about Lilleshall then, because when I was growing up, Lilleshall was this kind of I don't know, I've heard it described since then as kind of Hogwarts. Was it like was it a residential thing there? Because what age would you have been when you went along?
14 to 16. I had 2 years there. It was a bit like Hogwarts, the actual building and the way it was all set out. But probably looking back, it's probably the best 2 years of my life, if I'm looking back at it. Great experience. Played with obviously some really good players, and still in touch with them now. And we won most weeks, which was a bonus.
What years would you have been there? Was it like 97 to 99, was it then? Or?
It was, exactly, 97 to 99. Year above me, we were the actual last year, so the year above me was Joe Cole, and my year, some players who you're familiar with, obviously, Jermaine Defoe, Leon Britton, who played for Swansea. A few of the lads played, obviously, lower leagues, but all started off at Premiership clubs, I think, apart from the one lad who stayed local.
So tell us about, it must have been around that time that the Man United thing came about then, wasn't it? How did that happen?
I was at Walsall, obviously, till the age of 14, but there were clubs always ringing up my dad. And when I got into Lillishall, they just said, like, it would be, I know it don't sound great, but they just said it would be better if you actually moved clubs. It was just an eye-opener, really, that the FA wanted most of the players to be at Premier League clubs, I think.
So the first time that you kind of rock up at Man United, tell us what does that feel like?
I think we went up on the day with my dad, and they made you feel really special. Obviously, I met the manager, all the players in the room, in the changing room before the game. I had my picture took with Alex Ferguson signing the contract, and they brought the Premier League trophy in, and so it was good. Obviously, watched the game and had a meal there and everything. It was good, but just to meet the players, that was amazing. Giggs, Beckham, Scholes, Roy Keane. I didn't know whether to approach Roy Keane because he was not too sure, but they'd won, so like they were all in a decent mood and they were all happy to talk to you and give you advice.
So how long were you at United for?
2 years, mate. Just the 2 years I was at Lillishall. You're on everybody's say, so I suppose it's like you need to come up, because that was my actual football club that I was contracted to. Obviously, that they wanted me there and to see how I was developing firsthand, because they used to come and watch the games at Lillishall now and again. When you're training there day in, day out, they can have a look at you properly. So you just feel like you had to go, really, more than anything. Although I wanted to, there was times when I thought, I could just do with having a week at home, I suppose. It was weird, really, because obviously I was at the club and I was a Man United player, but I was never really there. It was quite weird.
So whose decision was it that you'd go to Villa then?
Mine. When I'd finished Lillishall, I was at Man United, obviously, and I got to the stage where all the lads were sort of talking about their contracts, and at the time I just felt that Klaus Pals was at the Villa as well. I've got Rob Edwards, who I still speak to now. He's probably my best mate in football, and Jonathan Buers was at the Villa as well, and that's who I really got on with at Lillishall. And I just thought that I'm going to go there if they still want me, because I spoke to Villa before I went to Lillishall. Spoke to Brian Jones a few times, and I think I actually told him I'd sign, and I never, which is poor. But it was around that time, 15, 16, that I decided that I wanted to go to the Villa.
I've been doing some homework and going through the archives about some of the things that were written and said about you when you were at Villa, and I know from briefly speaking to you that you're quite a modest guy, so that this will kind of roll off your shoulders, I'm sure. But I found this in one of our letters pages from back about 99, 2000, saying there's a fan who's written in saying kind of demanding to know, actually no, this would have been when O'Leary was there, demanding to know why you're not in the team. This is from a Mr. B. Hancock, a supporter of 46 years. Our supporters club would like to know why David O'Leary has ignored the most talented player at Villa, Stephen Cooke. Nobody at the Villa has the football brains he has, can pass like him. We haven't had a great winger at the Villa for years. No disrespect to the other youngsters in the team, but Stephen is way ahead of them. Yet O'Leary ignores him. We need players like that in our team. Must be nice to hear, hadn't it, stuff like that?
Yeah, it's always nice to hear, yeah. I think when David O'Leary came in, I was ready then, that was probably my year where I was probably, because Graham Taylor's year, he wasn't convinced at first. Graham Taylor wasn't, and I was out of contract actually on last year, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen, because obviously I was at that age there where I should obviously be playing first team football or in the squad, and I had a few offers from championship clubs and things like that. So it took till about Graham Taylor's first season. I think by Christmas time I'd actually convinced him. It was just after Christmas that I started to get involved with the first team. David O'Leary coming in, and he just had a completely different way of seeing it, I suppose.
Again, I'm not trying to embarrass you by saying all these nice things, but there's a quote from Gordon Cowans back then as well. Let me dig it out a minute. Stephen is the best player I've seen in a long time. he's an outstanding talent. I mean, I don't know how to phrase this, but with everybody raving about you, Stephen, was it kind of difficult to kind of stay grounded, or you come from the kind of family background that your dad had soon kind of knock you back down if you got carried away, or what? How did it feel at the time when you were just on the edges of making this breakthrough?
Like I say, it was more people at the football club and people around. Reputation was like pretty much like that at the time. Because then I was getting asked questions, you see. It was like, well, if you're that good and people are saying you're that good, how come you're not playing? Then I'd start to think, well, what can I do? Or what am I doing wrong? And so although it was nice to hear, it was a bit frustrating as well, because obviously he's still a legend, isn't he? He's the best player to ever play for the club and massive influence on my career. And it was just a bit frustrating that, you know, people like that and other people at the club who wanted me to be playing, and I just couldn't seem to get that chance when I needed it. It was just the player I was. I was a victim of probably the way I played, because I like to carry the ball. I think in the middle of the park, it was more like, can you get it and move it? Because obviously it was 4-4-2, and it wasn't like now. Obviously, the workload in the middle of the park was a lot more because it was just a 2. Getting me out wide in one-on-one situations, I think that's where they saw me being most effective.
I think you made your debut, again, if my homework's correct, I think you made your debut in the Intertoto Cup when Villa were playing at the Hawthorns, I think, because the Trinity Road stand was being revamped. So have you got any memories of the first time that you got on and actually made the first team?
Yeah, it was at the Hawthorns, and on the morning, I think a few players had pulled out injured. I think Luke Nillis had just signed and he was a bit stiff. So it wasn't till about lunchtime that the gaffer said, like, you'll be involved tonight. It was about 20, 25 minutes to go, and he just pulled me. He said, right, you're going on. I didn't expect to go on. I didn't expect it. I didn't even expect to be involved in the squad. You know, I was nervous before I went on, but then when I got on, I was more excited. I just, you know, to get a touch of the ball and get into it more or less. So I only had half hour, so I wanted to do as much as I could.
So that'd have been Gregory, wouldn't it?
Yeah, John Gregory.
How was he with you?
He's the best one I had. I think if he'd have stayed, things might have been different. He was the one he had me involved really early, because obviously before I made my debut, I was always travelling with the first team and being involved. I trained with the first team a lot. When I went to played away, he'd take me to the away games, and just being on the coach with the players and just getting involved and being around it. He had me from an early age involved. I think I was even 16 maybe when I got involved training and going to the games.
What would it have been like being around Bodymore at the time back then? Was it? I was speaking. We did an interview with Barry Bannon last week, and speaking to him about his experiences. Would you have been kind of, you know, doing some of the kind of odd jobs, cleaning boots, sweeping changing rooms and that kind of thing? Yeah,
definitely. I had the most jobs. I couldn't believe it. I can't remember when I first came. They gave us the list of jobs, and the lad who I was sharing the jobs with was Wayne Henderson, the goalkeeper, and he wasn't coming over for another 2 weeks. So I literally had the canteen, all the hallways, the boot cage, and the gym. And I was hoovering for about half hour every night after training. Nightmare.
So whose boots would you have had to clean?
Dion Dublin. Yeah, I was Dion's boot boy. Superb. Really, really good. Obviously, he'd say to me, like, do you need any boots? Or he sat in the other hand. I weren't a great boot boy, to be honest. I weren't the best. I always cleaned them, but he always had a little moan, and he might say, oh, these are a bit wet or whatever, when I just used to shove them under the tap. But we all clean boots. It was just part of it at the time. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, to be honest. I think they should still do it now.
There's some big personalities went around the first team scene back then, not just good players, but kind of, I don't know, you'd have probably had Collymore knocking about, Merson, Dublin, Bosnich. It must have been a bit of a kind of, was there much banter between the kids and the senior pros?
Yeah, it was quite good, to be fair. They were really good. I think you got to see when I signed for the Villa, coming from Man United, I remember at the time, when I got there, I think it was Collymore's last season, so he was just leaving, really. But you had, like, the majority of the players were British. So it was like Ekiog, Southgate, Gareth Barry, Ian Taylor, Lee Hendry, Merson, Dublin. So like it was more like a British club, whereas it was just starting. Most clubs relying a bit more on foreign players.
Who were the kids coming through alongside you then? You mentioned John Bewers and Rob Edwards. Who else would have been knocking around back then?
Oh, mate, we had a really, really good youth setup at the time. I think it was so strong. So it weren't even just competition to get in the first team with obviously the first team players. Youth team was really strong as well. So like my year was me, Rob Edwards, Jonathan Bewers. There was a lot of lads who were playing. Like there was 4 of us who were playing for England from my year. So Leon Hilton played for England. Stephen Moore was the year below, but he come in and signed the year early, and he trained with us every day. Sorry, so you got him, and then the year below was like Stephen Davies, Peter Whittingham, Liam Ridgewell. It was pretty strong. I was playing reserves from the age of 16, so obviously I was training with the first team quite often, training reserves, and played not much youth team football because obviously the first team played. If I was in the squad for the first team on the Saturday, I wouldn't play on the Saturday morning for the youth team. I think I missed about a month of football when I was about 17. And Tony McAndrew just said, look, you have to speak to the gaffer because you're obviously not getting on the bench. I was just in the squad, so just travelling So he just said, you're going to have to start playing some football because I was missing a bit of football. So, yeah, it was just basically do your best in your reserve games, all the training and everything. You just obviously get your head down and hopefully we get a break.
By my reckoning, I think you came on and got a few minutes at home to Bolton. So that had been your Villa Park Premier League debut. Then I think you came on and played a little bit against Man United. And I think you played away at Leeds as well. And I think that those were your kind of only other 3 appearances. What was it like around then under Graham?
He wasn't quite sure about me at first because when he came in, obviously I was playing centre midfield. But he obviously changed the formation. We started playing 4-4-2, and he probably seen me more as a wide player. I think we had a meeting, a group meeting amongst. We weren't doing too well. The first team was struggling, but our reserve team was doing really well. And he just said, he singled me out a little bit and just said, how long am I going to have to wait for you just to start doing what you need to do? And I was a bit confused because, I wasn't too sure what he was asking me to do. And then he just said, what I want you to do is play wide, but run the game. And I thought, well, if you want me to run the game, I'll play him in the middle of the park because that's what I wanted to do. But it was quite hard to get my head around at first. And then in the end, I just started staying out wide and become an actual winger in the end.
Did that kind of knock your confidence a little bit, or just like you say, just leave you a little bit baffled?
Yeah, it just left me a little bit baffled. I wasn't too sure what it was all about because it was a group meeting. It was like the whole club, the youth team, the reserves, the first team, and all the coaches and everything. So, and it was just come out of the blue that he'd like not had a pop at me, but just it looked like he was a bit more frustrated than anything. I wasn't too sure where it come from, but I had a chat with him after and we cleared it up. And in the end, he did obviously give me some minutes, but I don't think he was entirely convinced, to be honest.
So you said you got a few minutes eventually. What was it like? Can you remember when you ran on at Villa Park for the first time for that debut?
Yeah, it was Bolton. We got a corner and he just said, right, I'll do it now. So he just said, right. And I just said to him, where do you want me to go set pieces? And he said, I'll just take them. I said, all right. So I had to just run over and take the corner with my first touch. I was nervous then, obviously, just going on to take a corner straight away. But in the game, I was just excited and wanted to get involved. I think United will come on for about 20 minutes. I think Bolton was about 15. I think the Bolton game, obviously, we won the game. So that was a bonus, and I did quite well in that one. The Man United game was pretty hard because at the time they were like top team, and he brought me on, and we didn't really have a lot of the ball. It was more like a bit more careful with it, keeping the ball when you got it, rather than if you give it away against them, it's tough getting it back. But the Leeds game, I remember that one, and I played about 35 minutes. And I felt a bit more confident. Obviously, the more games you get, the more time you get, you feel a bit more confident. So I did quite well in that one. And after the game, my contract was still going on for quite a while, whether I was going to sign it or not. Not from my end. I was pretty happy to get it done and dusted. It was more from the club. I just went in a couple of days after the season. He just said, well, you'll be starting next season. You'll share that position. So you'll get a lot more time. And then he left.
That must have been coming out of that meeting though. You must have felt 10 foot tall, hadn't you?
Yeah, because like I say, I still thought when I went into the meeting, obviously, when he offered me the contract and I spoke to him, he said to me, "Don't bother getting your agent involved because we're not moving on that." And I said, "Okay, no problem." It wasn't a problem, I was obviously agents being agents, so we've got to do this and we're going to do that, and we're going to try and sort this. And I don't know whether he thought that I was being funny because he told me that there was no moving in it, you weren't getting any more money or whatever. It was just basically getting it all sorted from the odd bits and bobs. And I don't know how he took it, to be honest, but in the end, I wasn't expecting him to say, right, next season you'll be starting games and you'll be sharing the position.
By the time the next season comes around, then that's all fallen flat because O'Leary's in charge by the start of the next season. Is that right?
Yeah. Graham left. I think it was about 3 days later. I had the meeting. I'd signed my contract. I think I was on my way to the gym because obviously it was the off season. And my mate went in and he just said, "Has you heard Taylor's left?" And when he said it, I thought he meant Ian Taylor because he was obviously moving on. And I just said, "Yeah, we knew ages ago." And he said, "Bloody hell," he says, "how's he kept it quiet?" And I was just like, "Oh, he hasn't been playing, has he?" And he was like, "Well, I've just got it mixed up." And then when he said it was the manager, I just thought, "No, you can't be right." I was there 2 days. Something must have gone on, obviously, and then it all come out that it had, and he'd left. And then obviously, O'Leary got the job. What happened is when he came in, he sort of said to Kev and I think the reserve team staff, or whatever, he just said, "I want to have a look at the senior players to start with. So can you keep the reserves? And if I need one or two, I'll draft them in or whatever. But I really want to try and keep the elderly, the senior players together and have a look," because he wasn't sure on a few of them, I suppose, and he just wanted to have a look at them first before he went having a look at the younger lads. In
terms of your time at Villa, then, what would be your favourite memory from your time there?
Obviously, playing my debut was great. That would have been the best. But obviously, from the youth team days, I think you go on a lot of trips with the lads. The Hong Kong tournaments, we enjoyed them. We went to Japan and things like that. I think when you look back on it, the youth team was it is. I think a lot of players will say they enjoyed their youth team era. It was good, and you make a lot of friends who you still keep in contact with. But just the club in general was massive. I didn't realise coming from Man United, because I think a few people actually think that I went to Man United, then back to Walsall, then to Villa. That wasn't the case. It was straight from Man United to Villa. Just a massive football club, but I didn't realise until I actually got into the training ground and the first game of the season how big Aston Villa was.
Can you remember your funniest moment at Villa? Either a prank or something stupid somebody's done?
So it was quite surprising. David Ginola was unbelievable at paintball. We went paintballing for our Christmas party, and he was unbelievable. Everybody thought, he ain't going to fancy it, and he probably won't want to get dirty or whatever. He was unbelievable. He was in the bushes, he was up trees, everything. I couldn't believe it. There's a few, obviously, you get the Christmas parties and things like that, where you have a good night out and that. But he surprised me, really, Ginola, because he was always there, and he was always at the heart of it. And he was a bit of a joker, and people probably didn't see that side to him. But when he first got there, he was really good in the changing room. The lads are training, he was great, and obviously the Christmas parties and everything, he was brilliant. But the paintballing, I'll always remember that, because I just thought he ain't even going to turn up. But he did, to be fair. He was there, he loved it.
Who's the best player you played alongside and thought, crikey, there's something else, they're different level?
It's hard, because obviously playing's different, and so in game situation, I played with Defoe as a young lad, played lots and lots with him. So I actually played in games with would probably be Jermaine. But in terms of the best player in training and everything, I'd probably say Paul Merson or Benito Carbone. Obviously with Merson, it was just his vision and how he seen the game, and it was just amazing. He never used his left foot. It was all outside the boot, and his way to pass, and everything about him. He was quality. I mean, he used to say to me, "Oh, if I made a pass that was a bit too safe," he used to go, "No, you've got to try the other one. You can see that you can do it." And he always tried to encourage you. With Carbone, he was just quality. His touch and everything about him. He was only about, I think he was 5'2", 5'3". But he could just whack the ball. I think he could hit it as hard as probably hit Susperger at times. It was amazing how good, like his technique and everything. Just thought, Jesus, he was a special player.
What was he like around the place, Merce?
Yeah, he was great, because obviously his problems are well documented, and he did a talk with the youth team when we got there, and just to make us aware of what he'd been through and some of the dangers that you can fall into in football and in life, and how he was getting by, and just really good advice and everything. He didn't have to do that, but I think him coming to terms with it and how he dealt with it, just told us some of the stories. It was amazing, to be fair. He was great with me. I remember one time I did something to him in training, and he looked at me. He weren't best pleased, and I just thought, all right. He was always positive when he spoke to you about football. He was like, even though he might have the ump with me sometimes, because sometimes you get the ball and you play it square, and he'd look at me as if to say, "No, you can play that forward," or But he was always, although he'd look at you and he was a bit frustrated, afterwards he was always positive or whatever. Him and Dion Dublin, I would say, were probably the ones that give me the best advice. Because obviously I was his boot boy anyway, and obviously when I started training with the first team, he would just say, like, just be positive in what you do. And he would just call you and have a chat with you and just say, look, I think the gaffer wants to play you. You might have to do this a bit more, or you might have to, do that or whatever. He was good. Gareth Southgate as well. He was there, so he would always give good advice. There was tons, and they're all like top players. Gareth Barry, obviously he was still a young lad at the time, so he never gave you really any advice. But just watching him play, learned so much.
If you had to say why it didn't work out at Villa, what would it? Would it be a combination of these things? Would it be kind of people's concerns about you, whether you were big and strong enough, circumstances with different managers? Did you have a couple of injury setbacks as well along the way?
Yeah, I had a big injury, mate. I had a big injury. I was out for 17 months. I'd done it on loan at Bournemouth because I got injured in the reserves, and I had a month out, and I come back, and the gaffer pulled me and said, look, you can't be playing reserves anymore. You need to be playing first team football. You're ready to be playing football. And I'd already been to Bournemouth as a 17-year-old on loan, and they wanted me back. So I went back there, and it was my first game back there on loan. That's where I did it. Just made a mess of my ankle, and I just couldn't seem to get right. And then I come back from it, and it was still giving me some pain. Went for the scan, and it hadn't healed right. It was still broke in a couple of places. Whether I'd done that coming back or it just didn't heal from the operation, I'm not too sure. But it was just like an impact tackle. He's gone in 2-footed, stood showing, and I've gone in basically just to strike the ball with my foot. Probably should have gone inside footed and got some weight behind it, although I didn't have a lot of weight behind me. I could have made probably, I don't know, it's just looking back at it, wasn't a great tackle from him, but at the time I probably could have looked after myself a little bit better, and I think that just killed me. In terms of my Villa career, that done me. But I'd just signed my contract, so I had another 2 years.
So what stage, who's manager at this time? I'm losing track. Is this Taylor or is this Gregory still? Or?
This is David O'Leary, because he said he didn't want me playing reserves. He said he wanted me to go out and get some first team football. So when I did it, I think it was his first season. So it was I was out for a long time. I remember looking at the days I was out injured for on the physio. The physio used to keep a track of who was out injured among, and my name was at the top. And it was just a horrible moment, experience. I think it went through my head then that it was probably time to even retire then. It was that bad.
So do you think as well as physical scars, do you think that left a psychological scar as well?
Possibly. I always said to my dad, I'd love to have took advantage of the mental aspect of the game, because we had it all there when we was at the Villa. People come in, spoke to you about the mental side and things like that. We had people come in and offer you the services if you needed to talk and things like that. But as a young lad, I don't think you really care about it a lot. Do you just want to play and things like that? But I wish I'd have took advantage of it, knowing what I know now.
Do you think you had enough confidence that you would? Did you ever doubt? Before I might tell me to get stuffed asking this, but did you ever doubt that you were good enough, that you deserved to be where you were?
I don't think anybody else did. I think maybe me a little bit, a little bit of self-doubt, because you're always wondering, why am I getting in here, or what am I going to get a chance, or why? And I just can't really. If somebody said, what is the main reason why it didn't happen, I couldn't say. I couldn't honestly say, like, I could have done this or could have done that a little bit better. I think I worked as hard as I could. I think maybe timing, managers coming in and out might have been a thing of it, but I don't think there was anything that was plainly obvious. Like, you get the odd people saying, people's attitude wasn't right or things like that. I was never a shouter or a screamer. I never knocked on anybody's door, never upset anybody, I don't think. Maybe just timing and managers coming and going at a really important time when I was probably ready to play.
How does it feel kind of 15, 20 years on now? Do you look back with regret about what might have been, or you sound like a fairly kind of level-headed bloke who says who may think, well, I've still had a career out of football, and there's a lot of people who would who die for that kind of opportunity.
Definitely grateful for the memories I've got. If somebody said, I'd say underachieved, yeah, only because of people's opinion of me, not me being, I thought I was this, I was that. I think a lot of people had a general opinion of me that they thought I was going to go on and be this player. But looking back at what people used to think of the reputation I had, I'd probably say I underachieved, but I am ever so grateful for Aston Villa Football Club for even giving me the opportunity to obviously live the dream and be a part of the club.
What was it like when well, first of all, when you went on loan at Bournemouth as a teenager, and secondly, well, you went there twice on loan, I think, and then you signed a permanent or a couple of years with them. What's that like for a lad from Walsall, teenager or early 20s, having to kind of relocate? I mean, you could have picked somewhere closer, couldn't you?
But do you know what, Matt? I think I was done, mate. I think I was physically done, and I just thought I don't need to be playing on my doorstep, getting hammered every week. And I knew I didn't have long left. I seriously thought about whether I could carry on. I didn't know how fit I was going to be, because Bournemouth actually signed me injured. I was still injured when I left the Villa, and Bournemouth signed me injured and said, well, I signed a 2.5 year contract. No, I think it was a 3 year contract there. And they said, look, we'll get you fit. And I don't think they understood the history of the injury and how bad it was. So I felt a bit guilty at the time. It was either that or finish, because I'd gone from a stage where championship clubs were inquiring about me and interested in me, to basically people questioning whether I was fit enough to even play anymore. So Bournemouth really was the only option, apart from Walsall. And I didn't fancy Walsall. It's my hometown club, and I've been and watched them loads of times. I still love the club. I love Walsall. It's a great little football club. I just didn't think it was right for me at that time. I was in a hotel for the first 3 months in Bournemouth, and they put you up and look after you like that. And then obviously I bought a place down there and got settled. But it's weird because I actually left Villa. I was about 22. Might even have been 23 when I left. So I was there quite a long time, considering I only played 4 or 5 appearances, whatever it was. I think I was about 23 when I signed for Bournemouth. And it was hard to move down there. But at first I was like, well, you've got to get your head down and see how you go. But at the back of my mind, I was just thinking, I can't see how I'm going to be able to justify the money I'm going to earn, really, with injuries or whatever. I think they were expecting me to be the player I was when I was on loan. It was just never going to happen because the injury. Obviously, they wanted me to play wide right as well, and I'd lost that yard of pace that helped me play wide. What
was it like then in terms of? I mean, I've been looking on Soccer Base at some of the appearances that you made at Bournemouth, and I think you went to Torquay, didn't you, and to Halzone for a while. Was it just kind of trying to eke out every last drop that your body had let you?
Yeah, it was. Torquay was more of Colin Lee was the manager. He just got involved with Torquay, and they were struggling at the bottom of the league. he just phoned me up and he just said, look, would you come and help me out? Because he tried to get me on loan a few times when he was Walsall manager, because we used to play our reserve games at Prescott as well. So he always used to try and get me on loan to Walsall when I was at the Villa. And he just said, would you, any chance you'd come and have a game for me, instead of keep saying no? So I said, well, I'm going to struggle or whatever. And he was really good. He just said, look, you can train this day, that day, and have that day off, and just, if you do 70 minutes or whatever. I think they were really desperate, to be honest. And basically, he was trying to get a bit out of me, and I was just trying to, like you say, just get the last every ounce out of my body.
When did you stop playing then? What age were you? I mean, do you still have a kick around now, or when did you stop playing football for a living, I suppose?
Yeah, I think it was about 27, I think, because I went to play. One of the lads from Bournemouth got the job at Weymouth, which is next to Bournemouth and not far away, and he just said, would you be interested in just coming out? And so I was never keen on that level of football. No disrespect to it, but it just didn't really, it didn't suit me at all. So like non-league football for me, when I finished, it was sort of a no. It was never going to be an option. I just thought, I ain't going to get motivated. I probably wouldn't be able to get motivated to play non-league football. I know some players do, and I'm not sure whether they do it because they love the game or they might want to still earn a few quid, keep fit or whatever. I just didn't really fancy it. I'd rather just play with my mates. Like I just had a kick about on a Sunday morning with my mates.
So were you effectively retired then at 27, 28?
Yeah, because I got paid the compensation for the injury, which went on for a long time. Well, if I'd have stopped playing at Villa, I'd have obviously definitely got a lot more money for the injury, but they got compensated for in the end. And the PFA have looked after me a little bit. They sort of help out financially as well with you have to retire through injury. But I just remember when the doctor just wrote me off, he just said, look, I can't really give you an operation that's going to help you. There's nothing we can do unless we get somebody's cartilage and put it into your ankle, and then it's going to take time to bed in and grow. You're talking about an 18-month period, which would have probably took me to 28 and a half, and it would have been a waste of time because I don't think anybody would have touched me anyway at that age with all the injuries. It was just one of them, yeah. Unfortunately, I had to retire. PFA sent me to see a doctor in Sandwell, which is West Bromwich, obviously not far, and he just said, go and see him and just see what he says and see if there's anything he can do. And I said, okay. But obviously, he just wrote a letter and a report and sent it back to the PFA, and it was all pretty. I knew anyway, to be honest, Matt. It was always going to be like that. So I had a few offers to go and play in America, but I didn't think I'd be able to do it.
So did it come as a relief rather than a shock then, when it was almost somebody kind of drawing a line under it?
Yeah, looking back on it, I think when I left Villa, I think that was it, mate, for me. In terms of football, I only ever wanted to play top level football. I only wanted to be a Premier League footballer. No disrespect to Bournemouth, it was a great club. At the time, they were struggling financially, but I just it just wasn't, not the motivation. It just didn't feel, the same, which obviously it wouldn't because Villa's a massive football club. It's not going to be the same. But it was just obviously the injuries that got into my head, as like you said, it might be a bit mental. And I just thought, I'm just going to struggle, and I never recovered from it, probably physically and mentally.
So what have you been doing for the last kind of 5 or 6 years then, other than becoming a dad? Are you still involved with football at Chasetown? Is that right?
Yeah. I'm coach at Chasetown, which is just down the road, so it's on the doorstep, which is great. We train a couple of times a week, so we do coaching on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and we play on a Saturday as well. Obviously, the games. It's still like football. You're getting on the coach, having the banter with the lads, you're going to away games, and still kept in football. I mean, a lot of my mates I know Rob Edwards now is the England under-20 coach. So a lot of the lads that I speak to have stayed in football. But now I'm at the age, and I've just the last couple of years I've got into it, and it's a great little club, and he's a great bloke and a great manager, to be honest.
How would you sum up your kind of your life and career then, where Aston Villa's concerned?
Look, I loved every minute. I loved every minute of the club, going into training, the games, and and everything, and with the fans and everything. It was just great. As a time, enjoyed it immensely, and I wouldn't have changed anything. But obviously, you want to play. I'd love to have played and had a long career there and everything. So in that terms, I underachieved from the goal I set myself. But like I said, it is frustrating because I can't just pin it down to why it was. Maybe I wasn't good enough. Sometimes you have to take that on the chin. But I just thoroughly enjoyed it and loved every minute.
Thanks so much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure, mate. Honestly, because you kind of hear these names, and just to find out the kind of reality and the truth behind the story, it's brilliant. I've thoroughly enjoyed speaking to you, and I know our readers, listeners, and viewers are gonna have enjoyed you taking us on that trip down memory lane as well. So just thank you so much, mate. I really appreciate that.
Well, cheers, Matt. Thanks, mate.
Thank you for listening to Claret Blue, an Aston Villa podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please let us know. We love hearing your feedback. We'll be back soon with another episode. Until then, up the Villa.